contact information.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, March 13th. And we're starting the meeting at 12:02, and we'll do a roll call. I'll start with our newest member. Please welcome Tom Herman.
Hi,
Here.
Tom Herman here.
Okay, Robin Bates Mason here, Susan Schweitzer,
Here.
and Ann Silvio.
Here.
Okay, John Fusek, it was going to be joining by Zoom. He
Here.
might come.
Can you hear me?
Oh, excellent, John. Yep, thank you so much. Okay, so we have a
Great.
full house today. Okay, so on the agenda was the approval of the minutes for February 13th, that we're going to put that off for the next meeting. So they need to be sent out. Lola's also going to be sending out minutes from the June meeting that didn't get approved.
June.
Yeah, from the June meeting, last June. So we'll
There are
need,
also minutes from, I believe, December and February that are not posted. So I don't know whether they didn't get approved or not.
those were approved at the last meeting. So I'll ask Lola why they
Oh, well, then
weren't
we
posted.
didn't, the February minutes were not posted, so they didn't say that.
Okay, they were sent out to us and we approved them at the last meeting.
No, that's fine.
Right.
It's just until they're approved, they don't get posted, but she didn't post them, so I don't know whether she didn't know they were approved.
Yeah, so I'll reach out to her
Yeah.
because we had a couple of changes, but okay. Okay, so what we have next on the agenda,
Meeting minutes, and she came back and said they're not there in the minutes.
Okay. All right.
okay, so next on the agenda, we have vote to send a recommendation of fee in lieu of open space for land acquisition fund for subdivisions to planning and zoning for consideration. I don't think we actually had to vote on this, but we just want to be transparent. This is based on the town's subdivision in chapter 304 open space. I've sent this out to the commission. Unfortunately, Tom, you didn't get it. It was from last time. So basically it says that in lieu of open space, there can be a dedication of land for somewhere else or for a monetary amount, which could go then to the land acquisition fund. The P&Z has a meeting March 25th on the Brookwood subdivision. It is up to the P&Z. They can take recommendations from the Conservation Commission, Parks and Rec, obviously, but it's for they can take recommendations from Recreation Commission, the Environmental Commission, which we don't have, Conservation Commission, the Board of Selectmen, the Canadian Land Trust, or any other person or entity regarding the best method of preserving open space as part of the subdivision. In our last meeting, we discussed that we were in favor of that. We felt that land, open space conservation easements that were kind of by the town weren't being always left as open space. And it might be beneficial if there was it just went into land acquisition fund, a fee in lieu. Any discussion on
I
that
have a
further?
question regarding that. Perhaps Sarah, you can answer it. I understand how it works, or, the concept of this, but who decides? I mean, is this an application a developer or property owner would make to the town? Is this something the town is coming back to the developer with? And so I'm not sure how that works out.
Sure. So the final say is the Planning and Zoning Commission. So they have to review the subdivision application, all components of it to confirm whether it complies with the regulations or not. And so partially what they're approving is if the open space that they've proposed meets the intent of the open space regulations as it is spelled out in the subdivision regulations. So, they will take any resolution you all agree to. I think we got something from the land trust already, and that will go into their voting and decision making of whether they agree or not that it meets the intent as proposed, or if a fee would be more appropriate.
So if
they're
the developer who initiates the conversation
Correct.
and makes an application to planning and zoning, you can't go back to the developer and say, this open space proposal you have for your on-site is not good. Why don't you look around for something else?
So they can do that, yeah. So
Okay.
so developer initiated the application, made the initial proposal, but P&Z can amend.
And this is what we're voting on, isn't just this specific, is is the Conservation Commission saying all further. I know there's not many subdivisions.
So you're saying just for every single one
Is it-
going forward?
Or can we just specifically
So
say,
if you are referring something to the commission, it should probably be specific to
Okay.
this application, or else it kind of comes across as prejudice of only wanting it that way, because every application has to be reviewed individually from a planning and zoning
okay, so then we'll be
perspective,
voting as to make a recommendation to P and Z for this
For this,
specific
yeah,
application?
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so just for my own understanding, do you guys plan to put anything in writing, or like?
Yeah,
is
so we
there a
put in
formal
writing.
resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, so then,
after just get an agreement from the commission, what they want to do, and then we'll do
Okay.
something in writing. And I would send that to the P and Z
so send it just
distribution, or
to
so
me
just send it to you.
directly. Yeah,
Okay,
and it'll be addressed to the commission, but there shouldn't be any communication with P and Z commissioners on an open application, so you have to go through myself.
okay, so I should
Yeah.
address it to Sarah, Casey,
Yeah, so I
Casey-
mean, it can be addressed to P and
P&Z,
Z,
but just
physically
send it
gets sent
directly to you.
me. Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion, more further discussion on that?
So just to clarify, it's, we're voting on a general, the specific application versus a general.
So now what Sarah was just saying is that we should be voting now for specific applications. So if this comes up in the future again, we would have to bring this up again with the commit, if we want to give a recommendation to P and Z.
And so how are we notified when it comes up? Is there a mechanism for? that
When a subdivision's
triggers-
coming up, I mean, it's usually,
So I mean, so typically what happens is the P and Z commission requests that they want comments from, whether it's wetlands, you all, the land trust. So I mean, I'm happy to, if something like this happens again, to refer it to, Robin or whoever the chair is at the time. Just as a heads up, we have a subdivision application. If you want to provide comments, you could do so by the state. We could definitely do that. So that's what would happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
Then, Robin, can you hear me?
yep,
So I just wanted to chime in and say I'm be a strong supporter of the resolution to include a fee in lieu of, or to recommend a fee in lieu of the open space specifically in this particular case.
okay, great, thank you. Any other discussion? I mean, Tiger, obviously, we don't really need to vote, but straw poll.
Well,
That's-
maybe what we need to do as a commission is agree to understand what our opportunities would be, not necessarily obligations, because I don't suppose you have to make a recommendation on every application,
Correct.
but that we agree that that's an option we want to undertake. So I do think we need to agree that this is a responsibility or a land use issue that we would accept.
I think
But
it's already
it-
spelled out in the regulation that we
Yeah,
have
in the
the
regulations,
authority
it's-
to weigh in if we so choose.
Yeah, so in the regulations, the subdivision regulations, the chapter 304, it basically, we can go to the P and Z, but how it's done, it would be put in a land acquisition fund, but it's not under us to how it's performed, it's the P and Z.
Yeah.
Okay, I would just say all in favor?
Of this specific,
Brookwood, yes.
okay. And you've looked at it, this specific piece of land, right?
So-
The map and the.
The original, from what I saw, was that it was a little bit of open space over here, a little bit of open space over there, but the developers come back and said they were able to change that, and then they said the HOA would maintain the open space.
Yeah, so a little bit changed. Basically, there were a couple of lots that just had like these little strips of easement, and then over where the proposed driveway was, there were more easements. They since got rid of the little strips on a couple lots and moved it closer to where the other easements were, but they would continue to, like, they would be maintained by the HOA. That's what the applicant represented.
So what is an open space that's maintained by an HOA? It sounds like a lawn that's mowed.
So they have not provided
That
us
information.
with that information, which isn't uncommon. Usually if in cases like this where it is a proposed conservation easement, because the commission has approved them on much smaller ones. We had like a one large lot was split into two when they did something like this.
Mhm.
So it's a condition of approval that they provide language that's subject to the approval of myself and the town attorney. But it would be typically language like the HOA can't, you know, touch the area of the conservation easements, except for like safety maintenance or whatnot. And then usually it's in favor of the town to enforce.
Right.
Typically what happens, but we don't have that language right now, which
And what does
isn't
town
uncommon.
enforcement look like? Are they checked you know, there's a difference between a conservation easement from land trust and one for the town, that the land trust is going out, but. is
yeah,
it-
so I mean, the ones through the years that have been granted to the town, there is no process particularly in place right now to check up on them. It is, you know, when we're aware of them and if we know that there's active construction going on a property, we're checking up on it, but there isn't, you know, a very formal, we know there are these 50 easements on these properties
Right.
and we go out once a year or something like that. That does not exist right now.
These kinds of easements.
So they,
Or how small?
so the requirement is that they are 10% of the land area of the whole subdivision. So on the Brookwood property, it's like 3.2 acres
Oh,
of
so these
space.
are totally visible by satellite. Typically.
Typically, yeah, I mean, if they clear cut a whole area, yes, you'd be able to tell, but
And is the 3.2 currently, it's not all one piece of property though?
yeah, it's not, it is very piecemealed if you look
Piecemeal.
at the
Oh, then maybe not
yeah.
so track.
Yeah, it depends on the,
Well, it's mapped. I mean,
It is
if you were
Oh, yeah.
going in to look at the
it's filed
subdivision
on the
map,
land
it would be
records,
on
yeah.
that map.
It's filed on the land records when a subdivision's approved, so it is documented, it's just over the years, the list of knowing it's at what property it's at has not been maintained.
And which is the specific property that we're talking about now?
82
82 Brookwood?
82 Brookwood.
82 Brookwood, which, yeah, and it's the easements that are set aside. I've looked at it fairly closely. The easements that are set aside are non-contiguous to each other even, and are non-contiguous to any existing open space, either town-owned or land trust-owned or otherwise. And it, you know, do little, in my opinion, to provide benefit to the community, to the town.
And do we know what the fee is that?
That it's to be determined by P and Z.
So the maximum it could be, so the maximum fee that's permitted is 10%
Percent.
of the appraised value of the property. So that would be the absolute maximum that could be charged. I don't have that number
And
calculated
it's
yet.
I know, I don't have it right in front of me, the regulations talked about the appraiser has to be approved by something with Connecticut,
Yeah,
right?
So my understanding is under the general statute, the P and Z and the developer would agree on one appraiser, and that one
Yeah.
appraiser would come up with a value for the land, and then that would be the fee, not to exceed 10% of the value of the land.
that's correct, John. Yep.
Do they have the option to contribute to a fund where the town actually purchases?
The land acquisition fund. So that was started
Yeah.
in 2017?
That sounds
When he-
like massively better for the town than having a bunch of little tiny useless plots of property that won't be developed as long as we sort of keep an eye on them and even if they don't, because they're
Oh,
non-contiguous. they
sorry,
don't-
Tom, press the button.
Sorry, I'll just say that sounds massively more valuable because little tiny non-contiguous pieces of property are useless to the town or to the local wildlife.
Yeah.
But these
That's
kinds of,
exactly right.
and actually, Tiger, you might speak to this, are sometimes acquired not from developers, by road improvement projects and various other things. And that's where a lot of these little slivers come from.
But in this case, the
In this case,
slivers
yeah,
are
yeah.
coming from a developer
They're
who's
proposing
giving
a
us
sliver.
something
Yeah.
of zero value,
Yeah,
literally zero value to the town or to anybody except for the landowners.
Well, that's because they're unloading property that's of zero value to them.
Right.
all right. So I would say, any other discussion?
No.
Take a vote. John, you're in favor. Tom, you're in favor. I'm in
I'm
favor.
in favor, yes.
I am not in favor. I don't know what I'm being asked here.
Oh, sorry. So that's right, because you didn't get that. So what we're being asked is if we're in favor that instead of, that we would present a recommendation to P and Z that instead of having this open space as they have it in these non-contiguous
Uh-huh.
strips on the property, that this subdivision, and we have to specifically say this one, not generalization, we ask for the 10% of the value go into the land acquisition fund.
100%. I'm in
Yeah.
favor. Yes,
So,
100%.
Okay.
That sounds great.
All right, Susan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I will write a letter to you,
Yeah,
Sarah, and I will say to the P and Z and say this is the reasons why Conservation Commission is in favor of this and why. Okay,
and so our meeting's March 25th,
Okay.
though, just before then, so I could get it into the
yeah,
record.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
March 25th. Okay.
Yep.
And if people have opinions of their own, they should go, is that when they can have the public hearing, they can go and speak up?
Yes, that's probably when it will be.
Okay, great.
All right, great. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so next we have the Bristow update, and Tom, just because you're new, Bristow used to be under the Parks and Rec Department. It changed over, led by when Cam Hutchins was the Conservation Commission Chair, to be under the purview of the Conservation Commission, as it is one of the oldest bird sanctuaries. Susan, you can correct me, and then under the leadership of Chris Shipper, it was prepared and with the town and especially with Tiger and Department of Public Works was transformed into what it is today. And that was all, and prepared for the centennial. That was in September. I did a walk recently. Everything looked okay to me. Tiger, the only thing is I keep on raking the leaves out of that. I don't know what it's called. The thing with the water that leads to the pond, so it doesn't block up.
Okay.
But I mean, that's just,
It's
gonna happen.
The sediment forebay.
yeah. And anything other on Bristow that we should know about?
I think it never left Parks and Rec. I think it's town-owned property.
No, it's under the purview of the Conservation Commission.
Yes, but only to the extent that it's still town-owned property.
Oh, no.
That's correct.
It's,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's no
And then-
longer,
And then there's a partnership agreement with the
Land
land
trust.
trust for maintenance, et cetera.
yeah, the stewardship isn't, it's some maintenance. It's not, they're more advisors that look through it and then they'll reach out to you.
And they reach out to the, right, to me
Yeah.
in the Parks Department, John. And then we perform the maintenance or hire. And we have a line item in the Parks budget for, I think it's $12,000, I think, for specifically for maintenance of Bristow. And that, so at that point in time, you come to us and say, oh, we saw this, we saw that. Can you cut the trails back? Can you add a little bit more material to the trails because it's starting to wash out, things of that nature, and we'll go and we'll either do it in-house or we'll hire out to go do it.
Yeah, and I'll, please, the commissioners, Tom, I know you live right by it, but please walk it. I text Tiger from time to time, like, oh, there's a tree here. Is this okay? There was that tree that came down that in August or July, that river storm that came up. Yeah, and Land Trust though can do things like, I know Brian from Land Trust was doing some mulching there and planting of the Cam Hutchins, helping with the planting of Cam Hutchins
Right.
garden.
Yeah.
And Land Trust will also be doing all the bird feeders.
So NCL is interested in feeding birds. That's the girls.
Oh, yeah, I
Service
think, so Land Trust, I believe that they're reaching out to NCL to help
Thank you.
with, fill up the
Yeah.
bird feeders, yeah. So that's under the stewardship agreement, which was in October a year ago that was
So
signed.
Land Trust is the contact that they should be reaching out to for that.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so it's Land Trust.
Does Frank know he's sharing his screen?
Yeah, and actually, while we're talking about Bristow, I wonder if this is a good time. We have that Bristow's bird sanctuary, and we have the bird.
We've got the agenda because Tiger's got to go.
It would be great if Tiger could hear Frank's,
Listen. I'll listen. It's no problem. The only thing we had on Bristow is that we are looking to get a a wetland permit for maintenance dredging of the pond itself.
Okay, so the pond needs to be dredged again?
Yeah, just, periodic, it's small, so.
Right.
And it's a sink, right? So it takes the whole neighborhood. So the existing permit was for construction only, not for maintenance. So I've got to put together a wetland permit application similar to what we have. We have a similar application or permit for Mill Pond and Mead Pond for maintenance dredging. And then we would go in and periodically hire a contractor or do it ourselves and take out any sediment that's in the pond.
So the last time it was dredged, the muck was taken over to that field behind the Cam Hutchins
Right.
garden. So what would happen with this?
Likely just take it away, and we would either,
Yeah.
at times, we've added it to our leaf mulch as part of the compost, or we've just disposed of it elsewhere. That'll be, when we usually take it out of Mill and Mead, we usually dispose of it elsewhere.
When they dredge it, can the goldfish be taken away?
We're trying to get those goldfish out. We're gonna figure that out. But yeah, at that
They're
point in
very
time,
invasive. They kill everything.
right, they kill it. Yeah, there's nothing.
There's no frogs right now and there's
I
no,
thought you meant could Tiger Lake grab.
She did ask. I was gonna bring actually my boys down to take care of the, I got.
Boy, getting rid of goldfish sounds like a perfect job for Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so natural.
it's hard to get them. I've
Well, they'll
tried.
just wade right in, those Boy Scouts, they don't give
Boys
up.
catching fish, like
Oh.
little boys catching
Yeah.
fish.
Okay, so thank you, Tiger. So when can we expect that?
Well, I have to get the permit
Permit
first, so I'll let you know when that goes before either the commission or administrative, that's a decision for the commission, whether that approval. And then at that point in time, we'll let you know, when we're planning it, but the majority of the time would be during low flow, which would be in July and August.
Okay,
But it was brought to our attention, actually by the contractor, by Peter Lonnie, saying, hey, you really should look to dredge this thing again. After, it really came about after the August storms, that 8/18 storm where
Right.
where everything, the park got hit pretty hard before the centennial. And in speaking with Kathy, our permit just doesn't allow, our current permit allows for construction, doesn't allow for maintenance.
okay.
So we've just got to kind of amend that permit to allow that. So when that happens, when it comes forward, we'll let you know that it's going before the commission. And then when we're approved, pending approval, then we'll let you know when it's.
And that will come from the line item budget.
Yes,
Okay.
if it has to, yeah.
And what is usually the price range or something?
Well, for Mill, it's around $10,000. So you can imagine we'll be scaling it down from there. It's almost like a day's worth of work. So somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000.
Oh, okay.
for somebody to come in and do it. Because
Okay,
it's not that big. So
Okay.
you're talking
It's not
a
that big.
day or so to come in and take care of it.
okay,
And if we
great.
do it periodically, then we don't have to
Right.
worry about it wholesale dredging in the end.
Okay, and Sarah Herring is working on the, of Land Trust, McCain Land Trust is working on the signage.
Fine.
Yeah, so I think there was something with the estimate being apples to oranges or something. So
Yes, yeah, there was.
she's still doing that. Okay, so next real quickly, food scraps, redeemable can shed, and transfer station brochure. We've already talked about the transfer station brochure. It's been updated. We're updating it, or Katie, sorry, you're updating it, and it will go in, and Tiger will get stamps that just say sticker enclosed for the transfer station
Yeah.
passes, so the brochure can go in.
Yeah, that way they know that it's there to look for it. So we'll get a stamp, basically just an ink pad stamp and put it on there. I think that's easiest.
Okay, and then Katie Owsley's here from Plant New Canaan. Katie, did you want to give an update on the food scrap and the redeemable can shed?
Food scraps is moving. Our current model is a once-a-week pickup at the transfer stations, and starting in April, we're moving to twice-a-week
Oh,
pickup.
Can you press the green?
Current model is once-a-week pickup from the transfer station. Starting in April, we're moving to a twice-a-week pickup model, which will essentially double our weekly capacity. So we'll really push, once that is implemented, we'll really push to get more food scraps coming to the transfer station on a weekly basis. The redeemable shed, there's been some false news that it's going to be delivered on March 26th. False because I spread that rumor and it's not true. It's March 31st. Sorry about that. So starting also in April, we'll have a redeemables program go live at the transfer station where we'll be collecting redeemables, partnering with iRecycle, who will give us essentially 10 cents for each redeemable bottle and can.
Really?
Yeah. And that money will be used for Plant New Canaan and for other nonprofits in town. And then also.
So it's it's just cans. Bottles have to go someplace else.
So we're not accepting glass bottles, but plastic bottles, like a Gatorade bottle or something like that, if it's redeemable, can come, and then aluminum cans, soda cans.
Pretty much anything that would go in one of those machines.
Correct.
I got it.
Exactly. Except, again, no glass. We're not taking glass because it
Oh, yeah,
just
but
seems
they
like
do
it would
take
be a
glass.
disaster for us. And then finally on food scraps, South School is going live with a composting pilot starting on Monday. They're going to be collecting their cafeteria scraps, and curbside will be picking those up twice a week. And Planet Cane is working. These are all initiatives Planet Cane is working on. So
I have a meeting on Friday for that. Is it in my calendar on the wrong day? Maybe that's it.
And there's Connecticut law that over, is
There
it
is coming
26
tons.
26 tons?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. There's a delay for schools, right?
I think
The-
that it's
the-
on books, right? It's just the
It's on the books.
compliance.
The implementation is actually July 1 of 26.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's coming, and it's for
Right.
anything that generates greater than 26
6
tons
tons,
and
yeah.
is within a certain distance. I think we qualify for both. We have
Yeah.
to look. There's a
because we're
certain-
within for
20 miles, I
New
think.
Milford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda,
The
nation,
only, the only other thing I had on the transfer station is household hazardous waste day.
Yep.
So all those were announced. There was in the newsletter this morning that went out. So we partner with the neighboring towns. So there's 6 locations or 6 times. So Westport is on the 5th of April, Greenwich is on the 10th of May, Darien on June 7th, Stanford on July 12th, Norwalk on August 23, and then we're on the last September 27. But our residents can go anywhere, just proof of residency. You go there and it's free. So it's actually not free it's free to the resident, but we get charged back. The town gets charged back for whatever gets dumped at someone else's facility. And then anything that comes to us from another neighboring facility, we just charge back to that neighbor.
right?
But and then the listing will be on our website as far as what you can bring, what you can't bring. And I agree with you guys, is if you can go to a neighboring town, get rid of it now versus waiting and holding it until, September to come to us.
I was gonna say, when is Darien? Is that July?
Darien is June 7th.
June 7th, okay.
For the dumping of what?
Hazardous waste.
Hazardous waste guy.
And
We'll put that up on the plan.
Paint and stuff like that.
Paints, things of that
it's on
nature.
Oh, yeah, I know. Sorry, you're right.
there. So, and then shredding day is gonna be May 17th, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's probably one of
Safety.
2. We haven't set up the second one. We usually do 2 a year. So this first one will be in May, and the second one usually is in September, October.
okay.
Yeah.
And then with the NIPS money, the bottles, are we doing anything with recycling, with
We
cleanup?
haven't determined what we were going to
To
do
do.
with that money yet. If you have some ideas, there are certain requirements. It has to go underneath certain categories, like for trash pickup,
Right.
things of that nature. But if you have an idea, 'cause
Does-
John and I have been trying to figure out an idea, to use that money. It's not a lot of money, but it is money.
Okay. Does some of that money go towards Clean Your Mile for
Could.
the dumpsters? To pay for the
Likely.
dumps?
It likely could.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the requirements again to see exactly. I know that part of it could go for trash pickup, if you consider that, Clean Your Mile was trash pickup.
Am I
Right.
allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
How much money is it, Terry?
It's not a lot. I think the last time I saw it was like $925, but I'm
Oh,
not.
I think New Canaan brings in 800 a year, right?
Yeah, we don't get a large sum.
Yeah.
It-
And
It's all.
what's it from?
NIP
Nips, the small
bottles,
Little bottles. There's a-
legislation that
Oh, there's a special,
they can't be recycled and they're a litter problem in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So there's still legislation out there, I think, to try to ban them, which didn't happen. But one of the compromises was that the distributors have to pay for however many are sold within a town. That municipality gets a certain amount per NIP bottle to help towards littering cleanup or something.
Oh, I see.
New Canaan is serious drinkers. We don't deal with nip bottles.
Okay, anything else on the transfer station front you want us? Okay, the Nature Coalition Earth Day month update. And I don't know if there's anything you want to mention up this, but it's, the library has information about upcoming Earth Day programs.
I think the main thing is that if the town could help get the word out about the events they have planned.
Well,
That
they
would be-
event, the last day, I think, for sign up is next week, so probably they won't have an agenda until after that, but I would agree that it should be circulated to all of the the folks who have newsletters and like.
And social media accounts.
Okay, so we'll reach out, I'll reach out Mickey Porter and ask her to contact Tucker Murphy or Deanna Carlson to get that in there. On Earth Day, April 22nd, there will be a proclamation at the Nature Center. It should be for Linda Andros on April 22nd.
I love proclamations.
Good. Okay, so finally,
Are they doing any kind of a memorial for her
Copia Home and Garden has donated a tree
to the
And-
nature center?
to the Nature Center.
Okay.
They're just waiting, Bill Flynn is working with her husband Bill on location to put it on and how that's happening. So Bill Flynn's working with him on that.
It'd be nice to do a rose garden somewhere.
Oh, well, the Nature Center,
No, I think the church maybe will do
the
it.
church will do something.
I think so.
Maybe, yeah. So Copia, when they learned of her passing, they wanted to donate a tree, which they did. It's not been put in yet. They are working with Nature Center with Bill Flynn. And then the first selectman, Deanna Carlson, she's going to read a proclamation that Earth Day is also Linda Andros Day.
At the site of the tree planting.
Yeah, if there's a tree yet, if that works out, yes. If
We would
it's,
be there sort of for the tree.
yeah, everyone would be invited
Okay.
to go to it. The Nature Center does have a program at 1:00, so it was hoping on Earth Day on invasive plants, and so it was hoping that it'd be done before that. It's reading the proclamation should only take a few minutes. Okay, so there's that. And so now we have Frank Gallo from New Canaan Nature Center. And Anne, take this away.
Sure. Frank, thanks so much for joining us. We invited Frank to share his expertise with the town and with the residents of New Canaan about bird migration and what the town and residents can do to help support the migrating bird population. Frank, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay.
And we can see your screen, but not your video.
Hold on. Oh, give me 1 second. Okay. Now you
There it
can
is.
see me? I know.
Yep.
Great.
I knew, okay, so hi. I work as the senior naturalist at the Nature Center, and I've been working doing bird surveys at Bristow Sanctuary actually for the last several years. And we, from doing those surveys, myself and a couple other people who helped, brought the list from 80 something species to 125 in just a couple of years. And I think that's important that doing sort of assessments of what you have gives you a baseline to work on. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. So one of the things anybody can do is plant native species. And there's a lot of literature about this. Things like oaks support 934 species of caterpillars, willows, half that. But native trees support native insects, and also many of the trees provide fruits and berries and nuts and things like that wildlife takes advantage of, and they're resistant to pathogens. So you don't have, generally speaking, you don't have to do much with them, unless we introduce something like Dutch elm disease or beech die-off. They are designed to live in the habitats that we provide or that are here already. So you don't have to do much with them. Maintenance is cut way down. And then they provide the main food source for birds during the breeding season. So anything you can do to introduce native species, and if you can, native species that aren't, cultivars. The more native they are, true to form, the better. If you can't find that, then a cultivar is better. But non-native species don't have predators. They don't attract the insects. The insects aren't designed to deal with non-native plants. So many non-native species don't have things that utilize them very well. So the birds don't have the insect that they need during the breeding season to feed their young. And also, I don't have the statistics here, so don't quote me on this, but I was talking to one of the horticulturists at Grace Farms, and she was telling me that they've been doing studies on things like buddleia, which is a butterfly bush that people were planting as a pollinating source. I mean, as a nectar source for pollinators. And it turns out that yes, butterflies love it, but their productivity goes way down. So if you put up buddleia, it's also becoming an invasive in wetlands areas. So people were putting it up because it attracts a ton of butterflies, and they think, great, that's wonderful. But it's sort of as if you were feeding the butterflies just sugar and that's all you fed them. And so their young don't survive nearly as well. And I have 40%. I don't really remember what the actual number is. So there is a real difference when you use native plants versus non-native. Removing invasives, and this becomes a real problem. Once they're established, they're really hard. I was working at Bristow. Asiatic bittersweet was trying to establish when they did all the work on the trails. A lot of the soil was brought in, and with it comes seed banks from other areas, and Asiatic bittersweet was in that soil and started to try and establish. And I spent, when it's young, you can rip it out and kill it. And I was walking up and down the trails wherever I found it and killing it. And as far as I know, I got rid of it, but it really, really takes over. So you've got things like porcelain berry, that once it spreads, it's hard to get rid of. We've got it at the Nature Center now, and it's all we can do to keep up with it. Same thing with Oriental bittersweet. Once it established, it's really difficult to get rid of. But we're doing surveys. One of the things I do as part of my job is bird surveys and wildlife surveys, plant surveys. And I'm doing it at the Nature Center so that we can establish a baseline. And this is something I've done, at Bristow and other places. You need to know what you have in order to make informed management decisions. If you don't know what's there, you don't know how it changes over time. And it was traditional when I was on the board of the land trust years ago. The idea was, you get a piece of property, you save that piece of property, and then basically you let nature take its course. That doesn't work anymore anyway. If you've got a 25-acre piece of property, it's surrounded by invasives. And things like Norway maple encroach. Once they get in, they're hard to get rid of because they stump sprout. If you don't manage that property, maybe you saved it for some rare orchid. If you don't manage the property, you come back 20 years later and all you're going to have is this. All you're going to have is invasives. So if you do take on a piece of property, you have to take it on with the understanding that you're going to have to maintain it if you want to maintain the integrity of the native plant life that you have and the native wildlife that'll use it. And one of the issues there is, and you end up with having staff that maintenance staff. Tiger can speak to this. I don't know what the costs are, but often the folks, when I worked as a park ranger, I used to work with the maintenance guys on maintaining the trails. And one thing that I had to do over time, it became obvious, was they had no idea what things were valuable and what things weren't. It's not their fault. That's not their background. But they were willing to work with me. We would mark things that were invasive to take out, and we would talk about things, trees that needed to stay or shrubs that should stay. And over time, they learned what was important and what wasn't, and it worked out really well. But training staff and having volunteers that recognize, what the difference between an invasive and a non-invasive is, takes money and time, and you don't always have that in a budget, I'm sure. But it is really valuable to have staff, at least somebody who can go in and do a survey or mark things and let you know that this is in stuff that you wanna save. This goes, it's the same for homeowners. You want to know what you have. This is Smile and Minute Vine. God forbid that gets into the parks. This is porcelain berry. It looks beautiful. This is Oriental or Asiatic bittersweet. This is the stuff that people make wreaths out of and put on the front of their Suburban and drive around town and spread the seeds. Looks great, not a great idea. And then this one, this is Japanese knotweed, and this is really hard to eradicate once it gets in. If you want to save some money, again, this is a cost, balance versus labor kind of thing. If you can reduce pesticides and fungicides and herbicides, that certainly, will help the birds. The less insecticides you use, the less poison spread around that kills the insects that the birds require for breeding. Almost all of the birds that breed in Connecticut rely on insect life for feeding their young. And if you spray, the golf course, and there's eastern bluebird boxes up all over the golf course, and they've just sprayed herbicide, pesticide, fungicides all over the place. Those bluebirds are going to eat the insects, and then they're going to feed that to their young, and that can affect productivity. It can kill them if it's a strong enough pesticide, and it saves you money if you don't have to use it. And I worked with Woodway Country Club for a while, until they changed presidents, and they really reduced the amount of fungicide and herbicide, by tens of thousands of dollars a year. And they planted a lot of the edges with native plants. That's since changed, but it worked. So those are the kinds of ways you can save some money. The issue is, if is it faster, cheaper to run down the edge of the guardrail and spray herbicides to kill the grass versus taking a weed whacker? Don't know, but certainly when you spray chemicals around, it does have an effect. These are ways to attract birds to your yard. And you want to think seasonally too, but you can have structural things, dust baths, brush piles, nest boxes, those sorts of things. And then you've got, pollinator stuff, feeders, plants and shrubs, trees that all will work together to bring native species to your yard. And then think about it when you're thinking about seasonality. Can you provide, cover and resources for the birds, water, fruits, different times at different times of year, so that they can use the space seasonally, year round? And these are some of the things you might want to consider if you're doing this in your yard, or if you're planting in a park. Food is a big thing. If you can provide insects, that's the biggest help. Pollinator plants will bring in insects. Planting native trees and things bring in insects, and then trees and shrubs, native viburnums, native dogwoods, will produce berries and things, blueberries, hybrid blueberry, that sort of thing, all produce fruits that will also be eaten. And then nectar plants that are native, not non-native. There are some trumpet vines and things that you can plant. Providing a water source, especially if it's running water. Shelter, shrubs and trees. Whoa, sorry, just gotta. All of that helps. One of the few non-native things you can plant that actually does provide cover are some of the spruces, because they won't sprout, and we don't have the right environment here for them to germinate. So, and it's one of the things that native birds from farther north that feed on spruce can come down here and use the spruce as food. So they are actually native plants. They're just not from around here, but they don't really have a negative effect. And then, of course, you can put up bird boxes. But again, you're responsible if you put up the birdhouse. If you spray in the middle of the summer while you've got bluebirds in your birdhouse, that's going to affect them negatively. Another thing people don't realize, and this is becoming a trend, is there's a movement called Lights Out Connecticut right now. Birds use star patterns and the moon and the sun to orient themselves during migration. At night, if they're using stars and the moon and there are lots of lights on, birds get confused. They drop down, especially if there's a low ceiling. When they're flying low already, the lights confuse them, and they run into structures, windows, buildings. They can't see glass. I'll talk about that in a minute. And so there was a building in October 2020. There was one night in Pennsylvania where downtown 1,500 birds died hitting the buildings in one night. And that was just in the central several blocks of town. I'm sure many more died as well. And it's really heartbreaking to walk around these buildings and to see these birds, just lying dead on the ground. They got confused, ran into the side of a building. So one of the things you can do, and this saves money for the town, it saves money for anybody, is turn out your lights from April 1st to May 31st in the spring, and August 15th to November 15th in the fall. If you turn your lights off at night, turn off your outside lights, turn off your inside lights, don't illuminate, all of the buildings. That saves money, but it also helps prevent birds from getting disoriented and getting part of what happens when they get disoriented is they come down and they become easy pickings for predators. They get exhausted. They only have so much fat reserved in order to go where they're trying to go. And remember, some of these birds are flying 5, 6, 7,000 miles in migration. So anything that knocks them off course can deplete their fat reserves, and they can starve in transit. So turning the lights off makes a difference. If you want to know more about it, here's the link. But just look up Lights Out Connecticut. Window strikes. This is something that people are just discovering. Well, it's been around a while, but no one seems to pay attention to it till recently. Birds can't see glass. They can see the reflection of the sky. And so when we build things, mirrored glass, buildings with mirrored glass is just awful. They see the sky or the trees and they think they can fly through, and they just slam right into it, and that's the end. But you can prevent collisions if you're planting. One of the things that we have, and there's one at East School, and I haven't been there to look, but the foyers that you have that go between buildings that are all glass, they can't see those, so they try and fly between the buildings and run straight into the glass. And then we often put plantings, and this is something you can that would make a difference. We often put the plantings 5 feet away from the glass, and you've got a line of trees. Well, the birds land in the trees and then they get startled and they fly towards the glass, and that's just enough momentum for them to strike the glass and die. So if you can do plantings that are 30 feet away, like if you're putting up a bird feeder 30 feet away from the house or less than 3, that will help prevent birds from hitting the glass. If it's close, then they don't build up enough steam to kill themselves. And if they're far enough away, they don't see the reflections. And then if you want to put stickers up, there are now UV glass manufacturers, Birdsea and the Ultraviolet. So they now make stickers you can stick on the window. They have to be like 2 inches apart. And the birds can see them, you can't, or at least depending on which stickers you use. The idea is if they can incorporate these UV designs into the glass, then the birds can see the glass. We can't because it's in the UV, but you can see the impression of the bird that whacked into the window. The estimates are 1 billion in North America alone birds die of window strikes. It's a huge problem. So keep that in mind. And again, this is related to turning off lights as well. So getting into some of the other stuff, cats, this always becomes a big, huge controversy. I'm not trying to start one. I will say this, that, you depending on who you talk to, there's 82 million cats in the US, and some percentage of those are outdoor cats. If each one of those cats eats 1 bird a year, make it the low end that I found was 60 million. Say 60 million cats eat 1 bird a year. That's 60 million birds that die that don't need to. People think when they let a predator outside their cats, this is part of the environment. It's not. The screech owls that we have at the nature center, they have a 1/4 mile square territory for 1 pair. My block probably has 24 cats in it. I have a cat. I love cats. I had a cat when I lived in Wilton at the Weir, or near Weir Park. I had at Woodcock Nature Center. Sorry, I had a cat that I put 3 bells on, and the 3rd bell, it took it 6 weeks to be able to learn to hunt with 3 bells on, and one of them was like a cowbell. And I watched it one day stalk a chipmunk, and it was like watching water flow. It never, its head never moved. It just flowed like that. And so I revoked its outdoor privileges, and it became an indoor cat. And all the cats I've had since have been indoor cats. But just be aware that when you let the cat out the door, that has an effect, especially on things like ground nesting birds, like ovenbirds. Their numbers are going down. Black and white warbler numbers are going down. These are because there's just so many different factors that are affecting them. Window strikes, lights, predators that are not supposed to be in their environment, at least not in the density that we have them. So consider that. And then, lastly, right now the EPA is getting gutted along with other organizations. And that funding goes directly to monitoring and conserving all the birds that we value, and many, many other species. So, lobbying your Congress people to bring back funding is important. I mean, they just pulled people off of Midway Island in Hawaii, where wisdom, the oldest bird, breeding bird in the world, I think she's 72. It's an albatross that is still laying eggs. They just pulled funding for that, and they've been monitoring and protecting those birds. It's one of the bigger colonies, in the U.S., and they just pulled everybody. So it's hard. As all of you know, there's never enough money for conservation, and if we're making it worse at the moment. So that's my 2 cents. All right. Anybody got any questions?
Great. So Frank, would it be helpful if, when you talked about in Bristow going with some of the DPW guys and the invasives, if we created some sort of sheet or brochure for the guys so they can see?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
make it a
something that-
brochure. I did a bird list checklist, but yeah, you could certainly do an invasives, something
And I know that,
like this, where you just show them what the major ones are, at least.
yeah, I
Um,
know the Connecticut Invasive Working Group has, they have all this information, but
Yeah,
something
they're-
that's more specific even just to the problems that you're seeing within Bristow.
Yeah, within Bristow, we've gotten a lot. We've got a lot of things we got rid of, but all of the burning bush that is there, the euonymus that grows, the whole place is covered in euonymus. The problem is you have to be sort of judicious about it. The euonymus isn't perfect, but right now it's the understory. If you took it all out at once, then anything that nests in understory doesn't have anything to nest in. And
Okay.
we've done that at the Nature Center, where we don't use pesticides or herbicides to manage invasives. We yank them out or get goats or, various things like that. But one of the things we've got a long-term plan, but was very obvious when we pulled all of the shrub stuff that was all invasive along 120, along Owen Ridge, is that the indigo bunting pair that was there disappeared because we pulled all of it at once rather than leave some of it and then put in natives. It takes, unless you're planting, full grown plants, it's going to take years for them to return. So you have to leave them something and do it in stages would be that's my sense.
What about organic tick spray?
I know nothing about organic tick spray.
Or
I
tick spray
don't know
in
what
general?
I don't know what it does. I do know that barberry produces a microclimate that attracts ticks, that holds deer ticks. So if you got a lot of barberry around, you want to get rid of the barberry because that does hold deer ticks.
Yeah, I have the same question. We actually moved from tick spray to neem oil, which is, and when they advertise organic tick spray, that's what it is. But I am curious how that, whether that has a negative impact on birds and the.
Yeah, I honestly can't answer that. I don't know anything about that. I get a chicken. Chickens eat
Get a
ticks like it's
chicken.
their, yeah. chickens eat ticks like it's their job. It kind of is. They're chickens and guinea fowl. I mean, guinea fowls aren't native, but boy, chickens can eat can eat a lot of ticks. We have like 7 chickens at the nature center. We let them out in the front every once in a while, and they go to town eating ticks. It's not a
I'd like
perfect.
to have chickens anyway, but it's too much. I
Yeah.
don't know what they're spraying. I know it's organic tick spray. I should find out what they're actually
Yeah,
spraying.
I would, organic, covers a lot of sins, I think. You have to be
Sure
very.
does.
It might be a
Yeah.
garlic compound that they're using, that they think.
Yeah,
It could be, well, that's the point, is it could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
could be a
You
lot
know,
of
it,
things.
it
Yeah.
pays to know exactly what it is and what it
I
does.
took organic chemistry. There was all kinds of stuff in it.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was-
there's all kinds of
wasn't
things you
good
can
for
call
you.
organic that you really don't want. But yeah, sure, I'd certainly look up what that organic thing is.
Yeah, I'll ask. Thank you.
I have a
Sure.
question about I understand invasive species, it's pretty clear, but how you're defining now native species? I mean, we just
Oh.
went from a zone 6 to a zone 7.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, this is going to change. One of the things I was thinking about is back in 1980, I was told to go to George and Millie Leedis's house in New Haven, and sit and watch their feeders. This was during a Christmas bird census, and to sit and watch their feeders and not to leave until I saw the red-bellied woodpecker, because it would be the only one on the count. That was 1980. That's 45 years ago. Red-bellied woodpecker is a southern woodpecker. In the last 45 years, it has moved into Connecticut, moved into New England to the point that it's one of the most common woodpeckers. Temperatures are going up and changing. People can say whatever they like, but tufted titmouse, southern species. Cardinal, southern species. 20 years ago, I saw a cardinal in northern Maine and people went ballistic. Now they're common in northern Maine. Northern mockingbird, another one, southern bird, didn't show up in Connecticut probably till the late 30s. We started to see them, but they weren't established probably until the 60s. And I'm guessing on that. Don't hold me to that. But it's, you're talking that kind of time frame, 50 years or something, 60 years.
Right. Well, and one more thought here, I thought it was interesting that you work with Woodway, and there may be, questions we can follow up on in future meetings around large landowners in town, one of them in New
Mhm.
Canaan, around invasive species and pesticide use and nighttime lighting.
Yep.
So it might be something we can follow up
Yeah,
on.
I'm hoping to do more survey work. I mean, I'd like to do stuff at the land trust. I go there a fair bit anyway. You know, doing sort of preliminary, building databases of what you have is kind of, I think, important. Got to start somewhere, and you have to have some kind of baseline to work from when you're looking at, in the future, how have things changed. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Great. Thank you so much, Frank, for
Sure.
sharing your knowledge with the commission and with the town.
Mhm.
I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Frank, thank you so much. And I move to adjourn at 1 PM. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tom Herman. All in favor?
Yes.
John, I don't know if you're still out there or not. Okay.
All right, thanks everybody, and give me a
Thank you,
shout if
Frank.
you've got any
Thank you.
questions.
All right,
Great.
thanks.
Take care, Frank. Thank you.
Yep, bye.